He went to prison.
So that's projected on that person. So in 3 years, he became more efficient. So grew by 10. So his investment grew by 40%.
You can hear me, raise your hand. Folks, please find your seat or someone else's. I apologize, we are 47 seconds late, actually a minute and 47 seconds late coming back from break. So we will be leaving today at 5:01 and 47 seconds.
Don't take it off the line.
You need this time. So, before we jump back in, guys, I want to take care of a couple of house cleaning items. First of all, I am passing around the attendance sheet. Make sure you initial for the AM section and only the AM section. And remember that you need to mark on here if you need to leave early, or if a couple people came to me, a couple of people leave like an hour early last week. Just put -1 hour in the little square for your name. So we'll go ahead and pass that around. Another important housekeeping item. Who here is going to pass the test? Awesome. Who here wants to tell us what they're going to make? Raise your hand. What you going to make?
87.
87. What are you going to make? 95. What are you going to
99.
99? 97? 97? I like it. Monica? Yeah, I like Heather? 85. All right. Is anyone here going to make a 76? Thank you. All right. You know what? Give her a round of applause. Yeah, excellent. Now, I will say this. So plan on your success and eliminate any excuses. I'm going to try, I think I'm going to, but I'm going to make it. I'm telling you, you want to say that out loud with conviction at least 3 times a day, every single day. You want to make that statement. Get it in your head. You are your biggest obstacle in being able to access the information that I know is there. Have the faith in you that I have in you. That's all I'm asking. That's a fair ask, isn't it? And speaking of having faith in you, there might be some things on your background check that I don't need to know about, but do remember, and I told you I would remind you, I would, if you've not already done so, this week I would go ahead and order your background check. Your background check is available through, I believe it is ncreccheck.com, but that website address is in the very front of your adventure guide. It's also in that relink brochure in more than 3 places, and it is available on a link, as a link from the Real Estate Commission website. That is the only source to get it. What will happen as a reminder is you'll get your background check. It could take up to a week, week and a half to get it back. And you will get a number with it. They'll send you an email with a copy of the background check and a confirmation number. After you pass the class exam, whether with a 96 or a 76, I'm fine either way. After you pass the class exam, and you apply to take your state test, you will have to provide that confirmation number to the state before they will let you take your state test. They don't look at your background check until after you've passed your state exam, but they want it to be already in the system before you even sit down for the state exam. And one of the reasons for that is, just one of the reasons for that is, quite frankly, in my opinion, North Carolina does a phenomenal job. They don't have a defined system. They don't have an automated scorecard where your background check goes in one slot and it spits out a yay or nay on the other. They actually look at your background check. Remember, the law says that you have to be of sufficient moral character. I will say this, if there's something you're concerned about, because y'all, I've fully enjoyed every illegal thing I've ever done. If there's something on your background that you're concerned about, I can't answer that question. And quite frankly, neither can the commission, they need to look at it. But in my opinion, I think I'm safe in saying this, I believe that you will find that lack of disclosure can sometimes be more of a problem than if you actually have an issue. Right? I like it. Yeah, you said it's not a crime, it's a cover-up. I like it. Now, and of course, you do want that back, and that is good for 180 days, time being of the essence. Now, the background check is good for 180 days. When we were on break, Colin asked me a question, and I asked him if he minded if we waited until we were back to repeat that question, because it's a great question. Colin, what was your question?
It was, what is the purpose for both fees, the earnest money and the due diligence fee? Because it seems like you can get it all done in one instead of having it being complicated.
Sure, it's a great question. And this question is, why is there two fees? If I can paraphrase. Why is there both an earnest money deposit and a due diligence fee? Why isn't it just one, as in many states? I can give you, full disclosure, I am not 100% certain this is accurate, but it makes a whole lot of sense. I can't necessarily tell you the legal reason, but I can tell you the offshoot of that, which was developed about 7 or 8 years ago. Essentially, conceptually, it does something very important, in my opinion. It forces the buyer to put some skin in the game. Pardon the expression, but when the it forces the buyer to put a dog in a hunt, in their southern way to put it, to put some stake in the transaction. The offshoot of it, what has happened is, prior to the big real estate crash, about 2009, 2010, so let's say late 90s, early 2000s, North Carolina was experiencing a huge population boom, about like what we're seeing now. And we had a real shortage of listings, kind of like we have now. And a lot of businesses were moving to the south, were relocating to the south, like many of them are doing now. So what you would see is you would see buyers that knew that they were going to get their earnest money deposit back. So they would come into town and they would put offers, they would go under contract on 3 or 4 different homes. Now, can a buyer do that? Sure they can, right? So you're following their legal directions. But what they would do is they would go under contract on 3 or 4 different homes, and then after they were under contract, they'd beat the heck out of the sellers, and they would back out of all of the contracts except the one they got the best deal on at the last minute. They would hurry up and go under contract to lock those houses down, to give them time to choose, which is almost like a weird predatory buying thing. And the other thing it does is, so that's been an offshoot. The other thing it does is the due diligence fee, because it goes directly to the seller, it makes sense to the seller for giving the buyer all this power, all this ability to do all these investigations and back out for any reason or no reason before 5 p.m. on whatever day listed, time being of the essence. And somebody remind me, does that help? Yeah. So what does time being of the essence mean, by the way? Whatever time period is listed will be strictly enforced. So wouldn't you agree, wouldn't y'all agree that there's still have balls in the air, there's a lot of things being juggled around? One of the things that's happened is the average real estate transaction, in my opinion now, is significantly more complex than it was 20, 30, 40 years ago. If you don't believe me, just look at the number of pages of the standard offer and purchase and contract. So what are some of the things that the buyer might have to get done during this due diligence period? Survey, appraisal, inspection, right? Financing, repair negotiations, contractors, tons of stuff, which is why, and it's a little counterintuitive, the one day that used to be a time is of the essence date, the one day that everybody thinks is the time is of the essence date isn't. And that is what we're going to call settlement day. We have to start separating out. We use the term closing overall, but really closing has a defined, specific meaning. When you all go to the attorney's office and you go with your buyer client and Sheila brings her seller client, we all show up at the attorney's office and we all sit there and we wait and we sign all those documents and we have all that weird, awkward conversation where both the buyer's agent and the seller's agent are like, please God, don't anybody say anything of significance whatsoever, right? We are 2 steps from the finish line. When you sign all those documents, the term we use for that is closing, but that really isn't accurate. What it actually is settlement when you sign all those documents. And the settlement date by contract can actually be delayed up to 14 days by either party because of all these things that have to go on, right? And it's important for you to understand, because you might see it again, that not only can it be delayed up to 14 days by either party, the other party doesn't have to agree. They just have to be notified. Either party can delay up to 14 days for any reason, and it does not cause a breach. They can delay once for up to 14 days, and it doesn't cause a breach. And what's that called when you sign all the documents? Settlement. Closing is actually defined as when the deed records. Has anybody here bought a house recently in North Carolina and you signed all the documents and the attorney said come back later for the keys? And has that happened to anybody? Yeah. Technically, in my opinion, if the attorney's on the ball, a buyer isn't going to walk away with the keys and settle it. They're not going to get the keys until the deed records. The home is not legally theirs in North Carolina until the deed is recorded in their name. Closing is recordation. In fact, literally, one of the last things that happens is, before the deed's recorded in the Register of Deeds office, they look for any last-minute liens, any last-minute lease pendants, any literally last-minute things that might cause a problem for the buyer, and then they record the deed in their name. Closing is recordation. Settlement when you sign all stuff. Now, is there a form for that? Speaking of changing the dates or anything else? Oh, there's always a form for that, right? And what do we call it when you add something to a contract? Addendum. And is there a form for that? Yes. Literally, just like is there an app for that? One, if there isn't a form for that, can you create one for your clients? No. Oh, nay, nay. But who could? An attorney. Or technically, the parties to the contract could. Horrible idea, but they could. The chances are, though, in the vast majority of residential real estate transactions, has everyone signed the attendance sheet? Is it passed around? In the vast majority of real estate transactions, there's going to be an addendum for that. And there are things like an additional provisions addendum. Now let me prove to you that you know what you need to know. There's a thing called a backup contract addendum. Raise your hand if you want to take a shot at what that's for. Yes, ma'am.
Somebody that adds addendums to their contract.
Backup, it's for a backup contract, sure. But sometimes, believe it or not, there's a form called the buyer possession before closing form. Who wants to take a shot at what that one's for? Buyer possession before closing. Don't overthink it. Take the easy ones when they come. The answer is in the name. If you're thinking, oh man, my buyer wants to take possession of the property before closing, I wish there was a form. Is there a form for that? Yes. And it's called buyer possession before closing. Also, we're not going to get into it in pre-licensing. Horrible idea from a liability standpoint in my view. But if you just don't think that's horrible enough, there is also a seller possession after closing. If you're ever wondering, well, gee, I'd like to let the buyer move in before they actually own it, not think about getting insurance on their stuff and come up with all the reasons why they don't want to go through with it, but there's got to be something even worse we could do. Oh, I know. We could let the seller stay there after we close and really regret having sold the house. But where you see this used, quite frankly, is what if you have people that need more time to move out, right? There really is, it's an odd situation, but there really is a form for that. As well as, does the North Carolina system have a contingency in general? Does the contract have contingencies? No. But are contingencies legal? Yes. But you have to add them. Who wants to take a shot at what addendum you would use to add a contingency? The contingency addendum. And there is one we already spent some time with called the FHA VA financing addendum, which is a federally mandated The FHA VA financing addendum should be used whenever the buyer has to take a shot at what kind of financing. FHA or VA, yes. Because, unlike many of the other addendums, the FHA VA financing addendum significantly changes the nature of the contract. We'll talk more about that in just a little bit. And of course, there's a short sale addendum. And short sale addendum should be used for short sales as well as a vacation. Ooh, bonus point. Look, I blanked it out. For today's bonus points, who can tell me what the vacation rental, raise your hand, vacation rental addendum might be used for? Who's got it? Anybody? Yes, ma'am. Vacation rentals. All right, give her a round of applause. Yay! How many points should we give her? 3 points in our arbitrary point association game. Now, again, so right now you're in the lead.
Right.
With 3 points, yeah. Now, don't know what that means, but it proves a point. Aren't we a little bit competitive as agents, right? But you'd be proud of yourself, you're in the lead. And again, time is of the essence means what? Deadlines will be strictly enforced. And what is the time is of the essence date that we've talked about? Due diligence. There is, and what is the time that it lists by contract? 5 p.m. Could we change that? Could it say 8, right? Yeah, you could. By contract, it's 5 p.m., but time is of the essence does not mean 5 p.m. It means whatever date is listed will be strictly enforced.
Can that be changed just by initialing,
That's a great question. And I'm sorry again?
Michael?
Michael, I was checking, I knew that. Michael's question is, can it be changed by initialing? Yes, it can be changed. What has to happen is it has to be crossed out and initialed, and it has to be crossed out and changed, and both parties have to initial it and should date when they initial it. Because, and it's a great question, because of the concept of what we're going to talk about next, which is when exactly that offer to purchase transforms into the contract to purchase. Now there is one thing that happens in this day and age. Take a sip of something if you got it. Sip of something, sip of something. Earlier I asked if that coffee was good and it was described to me as meaty, and now I get it. There is something, and it's a really important factor when understanding why exactly we need to understand when that offer to purchase transforms into the contract to purchase. That is something that happens very often today. If you have a seller who's listing a home, how many homes does that seller have to sell? 1. And how many other homes are there exactly like that home? 0. Every property is absolutely unique. So it's kind of the best of times, it's the worst of times. But when you have a seller that has a multiple offers, how many homes do you have to sell? 1. So if you have 1 home to sell and you've got 9 offers on the table, you better understand exactly when that offer to purchase transforms into the contract to purchase, because you're going to have 1 happy buyer and 8 angry buyers. And that happens quite a bit. And the fascinating thing about multiple offers and communication of offers is that for whatever reason, as important as it is, as critically important core concept of what you're going to do every single day of your real estate career, it is, in my opinion, misunderstood more than anything else. Communication of offers, disclosure of material facts. 2 big things misunderstood all the time. By the way, who do you have to disclose material facts to? Everybody. Are there any whatabouts in that? No, nay. Multiple offers are fascinating in that people misunderstand them. You will have agents say when you have that listing, congratulations, Ileana, you have a listing and you have 9 offers. I promise you, an agent's going to say to you, oh, do you have any other offers? Now, it feels like, on the surface, it feels like a material fact, doesn't it? Does it kind of feel like the existence of multiple offers? Just gut check. Doesn't it feel like it shouldn't? But it's not a material fact. It is actually a confidential, strategic piece of information about the seller, which is why you can't even reveal the existence of multiple offers without the seller's permission. Now, we aren't talking about the terms of those multiple offers. We're talking about the even existence of those multiple offers. You cannot reveal those at all without the seller's permission. Now, will buyer's agents ask you, oh, do you have any other offers? Yeah, as a buyer's agent, I've asked that question. Why have I asked that question? I'm kind of hoping the listing agent screws up and tells me. But if you do reveal the existence of multiple offers, at that point you have to treat all potential buyers equally. Now we're talking about the existence of multiple offers. What I mean by this is this. Let's say, here sir, Kedrick. Let's say Kedrick's got a house for sale. Kedrick, can I put you on the spot for a second? All right, Kedrick. Pick a listing agent. Kedrick's got a beautiful, big, beautiful home for sale. Listed with anybody in the room. Pick anybody in the room. Who's your listing agent? Ray. All right. So Kedrick's got his home listed with Ray, and Ray's real estate, right? So Kedrick's got his home listed at Ray's. What's your home listed for? $450. His home's listed for $450 million. $450,000 with Ray Real Estate. Now, congratulations, Ray Real Estate. Ray gets 4 offers. She gets an offer from Jamie. Jamie, how much was your offer?
$350,000.
$350,000. She gets an offer from Ethan. Ethan, how much is your offer? $405. Now, by the way, Ethan, you don't know about Jamie's. But, and she gets an offer from Michael. Michael, how much was your offer? $420. Now, I want to prove a point here. Y'all notice what happened? Just plain, right? Just plain. Just us. Jamie put in her offer of $350, but the next one was a little higher, and the next one's a little higher, and the next one. You know who that wasn't fair to? Jamie. So, Ray, you got these 3 offers. There's a couple of important rules. One, you have to give them all to the seller, and you have to deliver all of them. And if you haven't, let's say they all come in at the same time, you have to give them all to the seller at the same time. And 2, you can't reveal even the existence of multiple offers. You can't. If Jamie says, hey, do you have any other offers on the table? You can't say to her yes unless the seller tells you to. Are y'all following that? Well, let's say that the seller gives you that permission. Go ahead and ask your question, Jamie. Go ahead.
All right. Are there any other offers on the table? I don't have to check with my client.
Cool, great answer. Go ahead and tell her yes. Sure.
Yeah.
So she says, yeah.
Just 2 other offers. I fold.
I fold. Absolutely. Now, here's the question. So she's told, does that seem fair? Now, how many, if you've got an offer in this house right now, raise your hand. Right? Michael's got an offer, Jamie's got an offer, Ethan's got an offer. Who knows that we're multiple offers?
Jamie.
Just Jamie. Is that fair to y'all? No, nay. Which is why, if you get the seller's permission and you reveal the existence of multiple offers to one party, you have to reveal the existence of the multiple offer to all of the parties. Now, and we're talking about just the existence, not the terms. Pardon me while I talk to John for a second. John, if you were a buyer, wouldn't you like to know the terms of the other offers on the table? Oh yeah. And would you want other people to know your terms? Oh, nay. Now, thank you for that. Sorry, John and I were having a private conversation, which I hope y'all heard. If you are, so one, you need the seller's permission just to disclose the existence of offers. But if you start disclosing terms, you know whose permission you need? You need the offeror's permission. Seller has to give permission to disclose the fact that there are multiple offers, but you need the offeror's permission before you can disclose the terms of that offer. Now imagine this conversation. Let's say Ray Ray comes to me. I'm Freddie Freshcorn, her bank at Ray Ray Real Estate. I don't know why I named it Ray Ray, but it was coincidental. It was as if you were destined to work there. But she says, I don't know what to do. Can I reveal the terms of these offers? And I say, hey, Jamie, we're in multiple offer situations. Ethan, we're in multiple offer situations. Michael, we're in multiple offer situations. Hey, Jamie, is it okay if I reveal the terms of your offer to the other two?
Sure.
Really? Destroyed my exam. You're not into this house at all, are you? She don't want this house. She's kicking time. Now, I broke. That's why I lowballed. I faked my pre-approval letter. Now, thank you. That's what I get for using an example. Now, but realistically, what's she gonna say? No. And if she says yes, she's gonna say yeah, but only if you tell me the terms of the other offers. So you have to have the permission of the offerors to disclose the terms. You have to have the permission of the seller to disclose even the existence of multiple offers. And somebody remind me, is there a form for that?
Yeah.
Yes. And by the way, the form, here's an open-ended question. There are no open-ended questions on the exam, but the form used to notify people of the existence of multiple offers is called the multiple offer notification form. This is why, and has anybody been in this situation as a buyer? It's tough, isn't it? Would you get a form that said, give me your highest and best?
Actually, we just got a verbal stating that we needed to come, with our highest and best.
There is a form for that. Which is why oftentimes if the seller agrees to disclose the existence of multiple offers, they'll just say we're in a multiple offer situation. Send us your highest and best offer by such and such a date. Which quite frankly, sometimes scares buyers away. I feel like it scared Jamie away. I feel like maybe Jamie signed that offer to purchase in invisible ink. But
Trying to get my chances and put no football.
sure. Now, and thank you guys for that. So, but there are some fundamentals. So the fact is, and it's really a fascinating thing, the fact that you were verbally communicated with, Ray was verbally communicated with, that they were in the multiple offer situation. Here's another thing that trips people up. Communication, verbal communication is valid. Okay, isn't it valid if we talk? It's valid verbal communication, right? If it wasn't, Dr. Phil show would never go anywhere. It's valid communication, but it's not binding communication. And that comes into play when we talk about what causes that offer to purchase the contract to transform into the contract to purchase. Now, there's some fundamental rules we have to follow. You should communicate all offers promptly, and everyone should get a copy of everything that they sign. We started this class by you signing a contract to take this class, the certification, and you got a copy of exactly what you signed. You're going to be tempted in practicality to say to your buyer, oh, well, we're going to go back and forth on offers. Let's just wait until we're done. I'll give you a nice clean copy when we're done. Oh, nay, nay. Everyone gets a copy of everything they sign. And when we transform from that offer to purchase to that contract to purchase depends greatly on two things. It depends greatly on acceptance of the offer and communication. Do you all remember when I drew that magic transactional line? And if you notice that all morning I've been going, when the offer to purchase transforms into the contract to purchase. It's not me practicing my 8th grade cheerleader dance moves, all right? There is, when the offer to purchase, spear fingers, becomes the contract to purchase. And one of the things that happens is, one of the things that causes that is communication across that magic transactional wall. Now I gotta back up and tie some stuff together, tie some concepts together for you. Do you all remember when we talked about universal agency, general agency, special agency? Y'all remember that? Does anybody remember what type of agent you are as a broker? Special agent. And do you remember, as a special agent, do you have any authority at all to make decisions for your client? No. Oh, no. This becomes important when we talk about transforming from the offer purchase to the contract purchase, because you don't have any authority to make decisions for your clients. All you can do is communicate the decision that your client made. Now, you can communicate that decision in many different forms. You can communicate verbally. You can communicate via email. What are some other ways you can communicate stuff? Text, right? What about, y'all know, are you familiar with the term snail mail?
Yeah.
Where you put stuff in the post office, and for like 44 cents, it automatically appears on the other side of the country? These are all valid forms of communication. Electronic, personal, face-to-face, verbal. But here's where agents mess up. Those are all valid forms of communication. But didn't we say that you don't have any authority? Right. So you can't communicate acceptance. You don't have the authority to accept an offer on behalf of your client. All you can communicate is the fact that your client has accepted. And acceptance, and the fact that your client has accepted, only happens once the contract is fully signed and initialed by all parties. Oops. Oh, my button went crazy. Pardon me. Once the contract is fully signed and initialed, and the fact that it has been fully signed, it's actually a two-step process. And I promise you it's amazing how many agents get this wrong. Once it is fully signed and initialed, and the fact that it has been fully signed and initialed has crossed that magic transactional wall, now we have a contract. But the only thing you can do as an agent is communicate. The only thing you can do as an agent to make it binding is communicate the fact that it has been fully signed and initialed. Now, somebody tell me, what are valid forms of communication to communicate the fact that it has been signed and initialed? Email, snail mail, electronics, oral, verbal, personal. These are all valid forms of communicating, but really what you're doing is just communicating the fact that the offer has been accepted. It's not accepted until it's fully signed and communicated. Let's say, conceptually, imagine this. I need a volunteer over here to be my agent. Anybody? All right, John, you're my agent. Hey, I'm Freddie Freshcorn. So John is representing me on the listing, and I have my home listed for $450,000. Don't worry, it's not your home. It's just already written on the board. So John is representing me. My home is listed for $450,000. I need a volunteer over there on the far side of the magic transactional wall over there to bring me a buyer. Anybody, raise your hand if you can bring me a buyer. Any volunteer?
What other side of the line?
Other side of the line. Sorry, Ray, I was trying to. All right, Ms. Ray, thank you for volunteering again. So Ms. Ray is on the other side of that magic transactional wall. She's representing a buyer. Are y'all with me? Imagine this scenario. So what forms of communication are valid for Ray to communicate anything over that wall to us? Oral, electronic, right? There's all valid forms of communication. But imagine that she emails an offer over. She emails an offer to my agent John. Go ahead, email, and you say it's a full price offer. Go ahead and email that guy. She sends it over. Now, hey, thank you, good job. Now, has she communicated the valid offer? Okay. So imagine this. John calls me. Give me a call, John. Hey, John, what's up, buddy? This is John. This is Jim. You got good news for me? Awesome. Hey, John, yeah, you got it. That's great, man. Listen, my wife and I will sign it this evening. That's perfect. Now, can you all see that happening? Okay, except, remember, acceptance is only when it's fully signed initially. Have I signed it yet?
No.
What have I told him?
Yeah.
I'm going to, right? So now here's the challenge, and here's what happens in the real world. Could John calls Ray in, and John calls Ray and says, hey, Ray, John communicates over that magic transaction law. Go ahead and give her a call and tell her that what I said. Says Jim and his wife are going to accept it, right? Now, here's the thing. He's communicated over the transactional law, hasn't he? He says, oh yeah, that's great, my client accepts. But have I really accepted it? No. All he's communicated is the intent to accept. Are we under contract at this point?
No.
No, not at all. We have no contract. Because all he's communicated is the intent to accept. What if John says, hey, I have this full price offer. I'm like, awesome, well, my wife and I were out to lunch anyway. We'll swing by your office, we'll sign it. We swing by his office and sign it. Okay? Now call her and let her know that you got a signed purchase offer in your hand. Now, remember, he's communicating verbally. Is verbal valid communication?
Yes.
Yeah. But he's communicating the fact that it has been signed. Now, do we have a contract?
Yes.
Yes. Because he communicated the fact that it had been signed. We've signed it. Signing it initially is acceptance. It's a two-step process to transform from an offer to purchase to a contract to purchase. It has to be fully signed and initial, and that can only be done one way. What's the one way you can sign something? Sign something. By the way, electronic signatures count, yes. But the only way to sign something is to sign it. Once it's signed, and he communicates over that magic transactional law, they signed it. Now we have a valid and binding contract. This is the danger of putting a date on the due diligence period that says X number of days from acceptance, because acceptance is when it's been signed and communication has crossed that magic transactional line. A couple people had questions. Yes, ma'am.
I thought it was only valid when the buyer's, the agent's buyer, or the buyer's agent communicated with the buyer.
Oh, nay. When it is valid is a great question. And Jamie's question is, wait a minute, if I can paraphrase, wait a minute, the buyer's agent hasn't even talked to her buyer yet, which is a great question. It's a very important point to point out, because it doesn't matter. What matters is communication across the magic transactional line. So is it possible that my wife and I come by, we sign the offer, John calls Ray and says, hey Ray, my seller client has signed your offer. John goes out of town, Ray goes out of town the other direction to celebrate. Ray forgets to tell her buyer that they're under contract. She forgets, she's going to Vegas, right? Party, going to see Celine Dion or whatever. Now, are we still under contract? Yes. Even though Ray forgot to tell the buyer, because it's all about communication over that magic transactional law. Yes, ma'am.
So if, just make sure I have this, the seller's agent, and I signed it, but he got busy with some other paperwork, even though it's signed, and he did not go over there to tell that it had been accepted.
Then it's not a contract.
Then it's not a contract. It's absolutely, and Sheila's point is, well, what if John, what if we stopped by and signed it by hand, in person, wet signed it, and then John got busy and never communicated it across the magic transactional law? Can y'all see that happening?
Yeah.
Oh, it happens all the time. Imagine this. John gets really busy because he's got all this stuff going on. We sign it. John never communicates. Are we under contract? No. Imagine this. Ray's buyer I've already signed it. Ray's buyer calls Ray and says, I want out. Ray calls John and says, hey, my client wants out. We're canceling the contract, we'll send you the paperwork. Has Ray communicated across the magic transactional law? Yes. Somebody remind me what the absolute right of withdrawal is? Remember that? The absolute right of withdrawal? The offeror has the right to withdraw an offer when? At any point prior to acceptance. And what happens to both the due diligence and the earnest money at that point? Buyer gets it because what? We never had a contract. Do you see it? I'm getting a little deep for you, but man, that's why it's so important. Absolute critical. It's when communication crossed that magic transactional wall. If she communicates across the wall the fact that the buyer wants out before he communicates across the transactional wall that the contract has been signed, it was never a contract.
And sending that paperwork has nothing to do with it, it's just communication orally.
Absolutely, and Jill's got a great point. Sending a copy of the signed contract isn't part, now you should do that soon, right? But you can just communicate the fact that it has been signed and you go under contract. The other party does not even need a copy because they already have a copy. If you think about it, they signed it before they sent it up. They've already got a copy. And that copy is going to look exactly like the one that was signed because when we talked about counter offers, didn't we say a counter offer kills the original offer? And didn't we say that every little change constitutes a counter offer? So what I sign has to look exactly like what they sent over. Again, it's all about signing and initialing and then communicating the fact that it has been signed and initialed. That's when it's enforceable. When it has been communicated the fact that it has been signed. That's what causes that offer to purchase to transform into the contract to purchase. And let me be 100% clear. The communication that matters, do not let this screw you up on the test, and for gosh sakes, don't let it screw you up in life. The communication that matters is the communication over the transactional wall. It doesn't matter that I said to John, oh yeah, we accept, yeah, we accept, yeah, we accept. Because I'm talking to John. For binding purposes, and Jamie, this may be the part that you missed. For the contract to become binding, talking to the agent is just like talking to the client. When I say we accept, we accept, we accept. He's my agent. Have we crossed has any communication crossed the magic transactional wall? No, nay. It has to go to the other side of the transaction. It has to cross that magic transactional wall to transform from an offer to purchase to a contract to purchase. When this becomes a factor when communicating verbal offers. How many people have ever heard of an agent just calling with a verbal offer? Happens all the time. Somebody show me, how do you sign a verbal offer? You can't. Now, is verbal or oral effective communication tool? Yeah. What you're doing is you're, well, I'm getting a little deep, but y'all are my thinkables, you can take this. What you're actually doing is effectively communicating an offer that can't become valid and enforceable because it's not in writing. So when that seller said, when I said to John, hey, yeah, we'd love to accept that full price offer, we'll sign it this evening. And John calls Ray and says, hey, my clients are going to accept that full, by the way, get the exact right words. When John says, hey, my clients are going to accept that full price offer, consider us under contract. But we haven't actually signed it. Are we under contract? No. So what happens an hour later? When I had my home listed at $450, Ray's client put in a full price offer, and an hour later, Wendy brings me a client at $465. Am I under contract? No. Are you going to think we are?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are we though? No. Do I have every right to take a $465 offer? Yeah. In fact, doesn't John have a fiduciary duty, a legal, moral, and ethical duty to help me meet? One of my goals is to get the most I can out of the house. What's John's advice for me going to be? Well, we never actually signed it. You should probably take the higher price off. You see why it's pretty important to have this stuff? Hey, yes, sir.
Doesn't that confirmation though, whenever the seller, in that case, the seller agent calls and says, my clients have signed it, that shouldn't, they have accepted and signed it? That doesn't need to be written down? That's,
If, it's a great point. So one, remember, it's, so when technically, and Marcus' question is, shouldn't that be in writing, right? Even though technically, again, once the client has signed it and the fact that has been signed, it's communicated across the magic transactional line. Do we have a contract? Yes. But if it's verbal only, prove it. Don't get confused for the test, because any of those forms of communication are valid. But it is my belief, and has always been my practice, that especially when it comes to acceptance of an offer, I would communicate it in more than one way, and at least one of those ways would be in writing. I would send them an email. Clients have accepted and signed the offer. Then I would call them and say, hey, I just sent you an email. My clients have accepted and signed the offer. And sometimes if it was one of these agents who's just too busy to do the right thing for people and you can never get in touch with them, then I would text them and say, hey, I just emailed you and left you a voicemail, right? So to your point, acceptance can only be in writing. And acceptance only happens when the other client has signed it. But communication of the fact that it's been accepted can take any form. Y'all good on that? Everybody, give me a thumbs up if you're good on that. Communication of that fact can take any form. Excellent. However, remember, it's a good idea to blanket your mule, and you're probably going to want a form in writing so you can prove exactly when. Now, when we talk in post, we're going to talk about what happens with emails, with electronic communications in great details. Because sometimes it literally comes down to the second that it was effectively communicated. Now, again, when acceptance of the offer is communicated to the other party, North Carolina, it becomes binding. They don't have to get a copy of the contract, as Jill said, but you do have to communicate the fact that it has been accepted, not the intent to accept. We're going to go through a couple more slides and we're going to take another break. I know we're a couple minutes over. But when you have a listing licensee that says, here's an offer from your buyer, and the seller says, woohoo, I accept. So when John says to me, hey, here's a full price offer, and I say, awesome, we accept. That's going to be great. Are we under contract yet? No. Why not? Because it hasn't been, one, we haven't signed it, and two, it hasn't been communicated across the magic transactional line. Now, what if Ray calls John and says, hey, I got this full price offer. And John says, great, my clients love a full price offer, consider us under contract. Are we under contract at that point? No. Because the seller hasn't actually signed it. The only thing that John has the legal right to do is communicate the fact that we have accepted. The only thing he has the right to do is communicate the fact that is accepted. And when you communicate the fact that the other party has accepted, my party has fully signed the document, and I'll get you a copy in a couple of days, now we're under contract. It's my buyer has accepted, agreed to all the terms of your counter offer. Great. Now we're under contract. It's a little bit of a different thing. It's a little bit of a weird thing. But here's the deal. The North Carolina Real Estate Commission thinks, and I happen to agree, as I understand it. My opinion, your results may vary. Seek a physician's advice before starting any exercise program. That once you've completed 75 hours of pre-licensing, and how many hours of post-licensing do you have to go through? 90. And, by the way, is there a background check, mandatory background check? Yes. So, and the Real Estate Commission believes that as a licensed real estate agent, as a licensed trade person in the business of real estate, which is really what you are, we can trust you. We believe that you're not going to tell us that your client is actually signed. You're not going to communicate that across the magic transactional law. unless your client has actually signed. And be very careful. Remember when I said here's where agents trip up? If John says, hey, I got a full price offer, and I say, great, my wife and I will sign it this evening. John's in a hurry. So all he does is shoot a quick email over to Ray, or a text. Client's accepted, 2 thumbs up. Have they actually accepted it? No, because we haven't signed it yet. Now, what's going to happen when Ray gets that email or that text? She's going to think that what he means by that is we've actually signed it. Y'all see how there could be some communication issues there? So John, quite frankly, when we're using an example, we're going to give it, he said, my clients will accept it this evening, right? Or they accept and they'll sign the offer this evening. But again, we're not in the contract until it has been accepted, and the fact that that has been accepted has been communicated across the transaction. And y'all, by the way, y'all got that better, I think, than any group I've ever had. Who here got that? Give me a thumbs up if you have. Kind of thumbs up. Look at that. That's awesome. Give yourself a round of applause. Yay! That's absolutely critical. Any other questions, comments, thoughts before we take another quick break? Y'all ready? Awesome. Let's take 10 calls, 11:10. Come on back in 10 minutes, and the party will continue.
I've done everything. Counters, carpet, garden, painting, pressure wash. My mom tried to do it all. Together. No, I didn't. Drywall? I mean, yeah, I know how to, I've remodeled another one. Cut floors out, drywall, I watch them, but I didn't do drywall. I do a little bit, you know. Yeah. You need everything
But it's not. If you would, I'll talk about, hang on to your homework until tomorrow. Okay.